Hey everybody, welcome to the TFL Car Chat podcast, and today we are talking about something that's making Andre a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm being a little bit upset because the potential story, is that Stellantis could be nixing and removing some brands from their portfolio. We're talking about car manufacturer brands, and it's never a good topic, and I'm not feeling so well.
Now, as a reminder, Stellantis is not a drug you get over the counter.
No.
It is, in fact, the name of the parent company that owns many of your favorite brands, including Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, and I think there's a total of 14 brands now under the Stellantis portfolio.
There's Maserati, there's DS.
Peugeot.
No way.
Peugeot. I think it's Peugeot. Yeah, a lot of European companies. So in this video, we're discussing what the heck is happening at Stellantis. Now let's talk about the news. So over at TFLcar.com, our wonderful managing editor, Zach, wrote the story up. Headed for the chopping block, Stellantis CEO says he'll axe brands that don't make money. And the quote is from CEO Tavares: "If they don't make money, we'll shut them down. We cannot afford to have brands that do not make money."
Well, technically, this is a corporation. They're there for profit. It's a publicly traded company. So yes, if a particular brand doesn't make money, it makes sense to evaluate and remove it. But like I said, I hate brands going away. Remember when GM killed Hummer and Pontiac and Oldsmobile? That was not a good time.
No, it was tough. Yeah, and it cost a lot of jobs for a lot of folks, which was really, really a sad situation. Now, CEO Carlos Tavares is a stern warning for brands that are lagging behind in the North American market. Your days could be numbered. Now, when Stellantis was founded a few years ago, there was a lot of excitement and there was a lot of talk that all 14 brands have their place in the world. And now it sounds like that may not be the case. But let's talk about the hard truth, Andre, the sales numbers. You're a sales guy. Let's talk about what happened in Q2 of 2024.
Yeah, and I think Jeep and Ram are safe. I mean, those are
safe.
So those are big brands. They have a lot of history, especially in North America, right? And also they're becoming global brands. Jeep is expanding into many other countries and regions. Ram is also doing some expansion, and I think probably will be doing more expansion. They're losing sales recently, Tommy, but I think they're still really important.
Well, if we look at Jeep sales, from the start of the year to the end of quarter two, they sold 304,000 Jeeps compared to 335,000 in the previous years. So that's down 9%. Ram sold 200,000 vehicles compared to 270,000. That was down 26% compared.
That's a big downturn for Ram.
Yeah, but we're still talking numbers, 200, 300,000, right? These are very large, very impressive numbers that can sustain sales long term. Now, I think Andre and I are on the same beat as to why these numbers are getting smaller. And for me, it just comes down to one simple thing. The products are too gosh darn expensive. They're too expensive.
And also not refreshed enough.
Well, yeah, that's a good point as well.
Yeah.
I mean, our videographer Alex just went to shop for a new two-door Wrangler, and he ended up getting a Sport S trim, which is
two-door.
Yeah, two-door, which is like one step above the rental car Wrangler. $52,000 was the MSRP on that.
Yeah.
$52,000.
And he was able to get some discounts on that, but still, the sticker price is very high.
And yeah, I mean, what it's taking is folks to actually get that money down on the dealer side of things, which a lot of folks really hate. I mean, if you talk to most Americans, they'll say the second most aggravating purchase in their life is through a car dealer. So it's a real problem, right? And they talked about the problem of having too much inventory sitting on lots, right? So that's not selling.
Yeah.
You want to sell the products, make them better or make them cheaper.
Hey, podcast listeners and TFL Talk viewers. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about a quick and simple way to sell your car or truck with the help of our new partner, Highroad. With Highroad's online portal, you enter your vehicle's VIN number or plate, mileage, and zip code, and you'll get competing offers from several qualified dealers in your area within seconds. You pick the best deal offered and follow through with the dealer to sell your car. No more managing scammy emails from buyers on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. No more time wasted on no-show buyers. No bait and switch with a "will you take a check" excuse from sketchy buyers. Now keep in mind, these offers will be for trade-in values of your vehicle. If you want to go through the hassle of getting more for your car, that's up to you. But if you want to sell your car hassle-free and fast, go to tflcar.com and click Sell Your Car in the navigation menu. Or click on the Highroad ad at the bottom of the website if you're on mobile, or click on the column if you're on a desktop. Highroad makes it easy, and we like easy.
And also for Ram truck brand, right? What was happening over the last, let's say, decade, right? Ram was, in my view, and I think in the view of many, many others, was kind of an affordable brand, right?
Sure.
If you compare it against GM and Ford and some others, Ram was either a little bit undercutting some of those manufacturers or matching some of those manufacturers on price. But what happened recently over the last couple of years, the Ram price, their sticker prices just skyrocketed almost, and it no longer became an affordable pickup truck. And I think their sales are showing that. Customers are kind of refusing to pay some of those high prices. And also, their heavy-duty truck needs a refresh, needs an update, and it hasn't received one in a while.
Really, really badly. And I feel like in a lot of instances, what Stellantis and then also what the previous company FCA did, I feel like FCA was pretty good about prioritizing the brands that made money with new products. So that's really Ram and Jeep are what made money.
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot of investment on brands like Maserati, Alfa Romeo, Fiat, and these are brands that just simply are not selling the units here in the US. So we have a new Fiat 500e, we have the Alfa Romeo Tonale, we have the new Maserati coupes. That's awesome. Where is a new Ram diesel?
Right.
The new HD trucks.
Yeah. Can you show the sales for Fiat, for example?
Yes.
Do you still have this?
Now, sales, first half of the year, 470 cars. That's not 470,000, that's 470.
The entire Fiat brand
Period. Yeah.
sold 470 vehicles in half a year.
And the problem is the reason they've sold so few is they don't have a car. So they had the 500X, which has been dying a slow, painful death. And now we've got the new 500E, which is a small electric city car. And I think we're going to see Q3, Q4 numbers go up, right? Because we're launching a new product. But Americans don't want a teeny tiny all-electric runabout. They
want crossovers, SUVs.
Yes, it didn't work with Smart Car.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work with Americans, these little runabouts. And I love my little runabouts. Like I have a classic Mini and we have an old Fiat and I love them. But the vast majority of Americans want big cars because we got big roads.
Yes. And what's happening with Alfa Romeo?
Well, Alfa Romeo sold 4,777 cars in the first half.
Okay.
So that's up 2% compared to the previous year. But let's look at their new hot seller, which has been on the market for a while now, the Tonale. It only sold 1,600 units in the full first half of the year.
Yeah, that's not high volume at all.
No, it's just not.
And it's a good-looking crossover, but I think price probably is a bit high.
Sure.
As well.
The sister car, the Hornet, has sold 11,000 units.
Okay, so that's a sizable number now.
Right, and you say 11,000 units, right? That's a substantial number of cars for the first half of the year. But if you consider that competes with vehicles like a Toyota RAV4,
which sells 200,000
in the same period. Couple 100,000 more than what Dodge has sold with Hornets.
Now let's talk about Chrysler. We have to go there, right?
We got to go there, Andre.
Because they really have basically a minivan, right? They killed the 300, which is a sedan. They have a Town and Country. Well, why are they showing Town and Country still?
They sold zero.
Okay. What's the Value Pacifica? It's a Dodge, right? It's a Dodge. What is it called?
That's the geez, do they still? I don't even see it listed here. Yeah, they had like the budget.
The budget Pacifica.
It's called like the Dodge Voyager, I think, or something.
Yeah,
it was
something like that.
Yeah, they rebranded it. No, it's not listed here.
Anyway, so the Pacifica is the only Chrysler on sale right now. They are selling quite a few of them.
Yeah.
70,882. But It's an old product.
Now, here's a question, right? Let's talk about the brands that I think they could nix.
Okay.
If they killed Maserati in the US, I think there would be a community of folks that would be upset, but I'm not sure it would have larger waves in the US market. Do you agree?
Yeah, and we don't actually have Maserati on this list
No, it's interesting. It's not listed in this.
under FCA.
Yeah, under FCA, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I think, I hate to say it, one of my favorite brands, Fiat, if they were to do away with that, not sure a lot of folks would really notice either, right? What about Chrysler? What is Chrysler's brand proposition here in the US these days?
So it's a people mover. I mean, which is good. A minivan is good, but they need more either refreshed product or more choices, right? They're talking about electrification, right? So Chrysler has been talking about this for a number of years,
Right.
but we haven't seen results, right? We haven't seen a new vehicle come out.
The problem is I just don't know what the brand cachet is. So is it a premium brand? Certainly under the Pacifica, it's not really a premium brand. You could make an argument before they killed the 300, it was kind of a value premium brand. But now that that is discontinued, I really don't feel like they have a direction, right? Dodge is performance, Jeep is off-roading, Ram is trucks.
And commercial vehicles.
And commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
And Chrysler should be, in my
Like a
opinion,
premium.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they just haven't really followed through with that. And I think if you ask most folks on the street if they think Chrysler's a premium brand, very few would probably say no, right? Because it doesn't have that image anymore. And I think at one point, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, with like the 300M and the 300C, and like there was a certain level of excitement and kind of interest in the brand. But I think as we head into 2025, a lot of that has dried up.
Yeah, and the important distinction is the CEO of Stellantis said making money, profit. So we've been talking about number of vehicles sold, but we don't know what's happening behind the scenes necessarily, right?
Good point.
Is Chrysler profitable? Is Fiat profitable? It's a more complicated question, right?
Right.
A slightly more complicated question.
Yes, that's a really good point. So, yeah, Andre, I mean, I think, unfortunately, even though Chrysler is one of the longest histories and one of the most storied brands, they're going to have to pull off something really special in order for it to have a future in the U.S. And, you know, it's just been, from the outside, it seems like things are kind of a mess at Stellantis right now. We've seen a bunch of leadership changes. And, you know, that's not uncommon when a new company comes in, but it's not like one leadership change. It's like several VPs of these brands are being cycled in and out on a fairly regular basis. And I know they're promising like 20 new vehicles in the coming years, but we're just haven't seen a lot of tangible results from these quotes. Like if you look at the Jeep brand, I'm just going to go down the list. Compass is sort of refreshed, but the overall platform is old.
Yes.
Very old. Wrangler also sort of refreshed, but once again, 2018.
And also 2024, a little small
Slight.
update. Yeah.
Same thing with the Gladiator.
Exactly.
Cherokee's dead. Grand Cherokee had an all new generation a couple of years ago now. Renegade's dead. Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. A couple years old too.
Couple of problems. Cherokee is dead, you said, which is the most popular segment. It's a compact crossover, right?
Right.
So they need to do something there because they need to fight against the CRVs and the RAV4s of the world, I believe. Also, we haven't seen the new Recon. I mean, we know it's coming, but it's not on sale.
Right, and they chose to lead with the model called the Wagoneer S for their electrification, which is this very road-oriented SUV.
Not off-road oriented.
6.7 inches of ground clearance. And I think the first edition starts at $72,000, if I remember right, the first one they're launching.
Yeah.
So I really feel like that Jeep is now pricing themselves in a premium category, but I still don't think that long term that's going to be a winning strategy. Jeep has always been an everyman category, everyman brand.
Yeah, and also really off-road focused. Yeah. And now it's kind of branching off into other things.
And I remember doing this little survey a while back. I went online and priced out all the Wranglers that are for sale in our area. There were like 800 of them. And there were something like 4 times as many Jeeps for sale over Wranglers, over $100,000, as there were under $40,000, right?
Yes, that's alarming.
They're not affordable vehicles at any stretch of the imagination. Even a Compass. We had a Compass Trailhawk at the office a while back that was $48,000 for a Compass, right? And they killed off the Renegade, which was their affordable little entry level, and they don't have anything for the masses now, which is a big
the Cherokee
problem.
they killed off as well.
Yeah, Cherokee's dead too. And now you can get Grand Cherokee into the 70s, maybe even 80 grand range. So they're just pricing themselves out of the market, and they're forcing dealers to really have to cut back on those prices for them to actually start moving units.
Exactly.
So, Andre, for me, if I was a company, and not that I have any ability to do this, but I would, unfortunately, I hate to say it, get rid of Maserati. I just don't think they have much of a future or direction here in the U.S.
You're talking about North America.
North America specifically, yeah. Get rid of Maserati. I hate to say it. I think Fiat doesn't have much of a future here in the U.S.
No, it doesn't look like it.
They had a big triumph. The problem with Fiat, this wasn't Stellantis' problem. This was FCA's problem, is Fiat had this big triumphant return 13, 14 years ago.
Yes.
Right? They had been gone from the U.S. since the 80s. And they had one job. Because to everybody in the U.S., Fiat stood for Fix It Again, Tony. And the only thing they had to accomplish in the reboot of Fiat was to make them reliable.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that.
And affordable and reliable.
Yes, they didn't do that. That was the one thing they had to do. And they were right back into that perception of unreliability. So Fiat could go. I hate to say it, I just don't see much of a future for Chrysler right now. Rebrand that Pacifica as a Dodge and, save the money there. And then Jeep's just got to start bringing the prices down with new product. That's what it
Jeep
comes
and
down
Ram
to.
have to stay and they have to push forward. What about Alfa Romeo? So Alfa Romeo is a storied brand, right?
Sure.
It has decades of history. Alfa Romeo was the first winning Formula One car or manufacturer, I should say. And always stood, for me, in my view, high performance and also luxury, right? It combined the two elements into, kind of a premium, very stylish. If you look at some of the Alfa Romeos of the past, beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Amazing. They're only selling under 5,000 in half a year.
Not many.
That's not many.
Not many. But I do think the Alphas have a value proposition as being a relatively affordable, more sporty alternative to like a BMW Mercedes. Because usually like a Stelvio or a Giulia undercut the Germans a little bit and are more fun to drive.
And also they're distinct and unique.
So,
right? You could see a 3 Series BMW on every corner in most cities, but you will never, you will not see a Giulia on every corner of a city.
And like that Fiat 500, we just drove the electric one. Fantastic car. But for $34,000, no way in heck.
You could buy a 4-door Leaf.
In Colorado, I could go buy that Leaf down the road right now for 14 grand, brand new.
Yeah.
I'm not buying a 2-door tiny hatchback for $37,000. It's just doesn't work, and it doesn't qualify for the credit because it's not manufactured here.
Yeah.
Big problem. This is one of my favorite companies. Genuinely, they make some of the most interesting cars on the market. But some of the decisions they've been making lately, like they killed Challenger Charger, and they still sold 21,000 and 26,000 respectively of leftover units.
Yeah,
right?
Which is huge numbers.
Yeah.
For being a discontinued vehicle.
Big demand.
And the new Charger, the electric one, is still not out.
Yes,
We're
still
almost
not
in
out.
August now. So, and it's being slightly delayed. There was a story recently that the electric Charger, I thought they were aiming to come out in August or September, and now it's a little bit later.
Right.
This year. So, also, how will people who buy Dodge brand vehicles, how will they receive the electric Charger? We still don't know this.
And then I also think, I know we've talked about this a bunch, but if you look at the Ram brand, right, like they have a new 1500 with the new Hurricane engine. Maybe I shouldn't say all new, it's heavily refreshed. But they have nothing still apart from the Gladiator to compete with the midsize category or the new small truck category.
Yeah, so Ford is running away with the Maverick update, right? And not just the update, the segment, right? So the compact truck segment is there. And not many other manufacturers are kind of meeting Ford there. Hyundai has a Santa Cruz, but it's not kind of matching where Ford is on volume. And then GM and Stellantis are nowhere to be seen in North America. They have vehicles in other markets, in Brazil, in Europe, South America, Asia, they have other small pickup trucks, but not here.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of work to be done at this brand. I think they can pull it off. I'm still hopeful, but yeah.
So I saw another story. We've been focused on Stellantis so far. Nissan is also not doing so hot.
Yeah, what's going on in Nissan?
Their profits are going down, 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 down.
Really?
So some of the volume of vehicles they're selling is okay-ish for them, but they're spending a lot of money, apparently, this is according to this report, on actually advertising and incentives so they can get vehicles sold in North America. And that's really cutting really heavily into their profits. And the Kicks is slightly delayed, apparently. They're supposed to be, they're affordable, they're very, interesting vehicle that they have coming out. So Nissan is also not doing so well.
Did I just read too recently that they discontinued the Altima? I think I just read that.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So American manufacturers kind of have gone away in a large part from sedans and smaller vehicles, like GM has gone away from it. Ford, in a large way, went away from it. But the Japanese and Korean manufacturers are still kind of big into sedans and small economy vehicles.
Looks like they are discontinuing the Altima.
Jeez.
I think that Nissan had a really, I kind of feel like, so under the Goen era, right? The
Gozen.
Gozen.
Okay.
The previous CEO at Nissan, who famously got smuggled out of Japan in a cello case.
Yes.
Or a music box.
Music box.
Yeah, right. He was a ruthless cost cutter. So he kind of leveraged the company's future for short-term profits. And we saw, just kind of in retrospect, a pretty poor variety of vehicles from Nissan. A lot of relatively cheaply made, cheaply engineered, CVT-powered blobs, if we're being honest, right? And there wasn't a lot of innovation or excitement around the brand. I think since Goen's been out, we have seen some really big steps, right?
Yeah.
With Pathfinder, Rogue.
Aria.
Aria is really good.
Aria was slightly delayed, but it's now here, and it's it's a nice vehicle. It's nice to be around, inside the Aria.
Yeah, and the Pathfinder is so much better than the previous generation. Same thing with the Rogue, and I really think that the Frontier is a very capable competitive truck.
They discontinued the Titan. The Titan is gone.
Instead,
and I know they're thinking about electrification and more exciting vehicles in the near future. But once again, it's like we keep talking about the next vehicle, but it's not coming. Right?
Mm-hmm. So I think that the products Nissan are doing now are a lot better than 10, 12 years ago. There's a lot more, I think, quality in engineering with what's going on, especially with the new shift toward more conventional transmissions and away from the CVTs. And the cars are really good. And I always think when I get behind the wheel of like a Rogue, I'm like, this is not quite as nice as a RAV4. Right, same thing with like a Pathfinder. I'm like, it's not quite as nice as a Highlander, but for the value, and especially with what dealers offer on the hood, the cars are excellent, right?
And the same goes for Frontier as well.
Yeah, Frontier, same thing, right?
Like high value.
It's not as dynamic or exciting as a Colorado or a Canyon or a Tacoma, but it's just a truck you buy that has a certain level of honesty. And I feel like that's what Nissan's doing well right now, is all their products feel very honest. They're not trying to be flashy or over the top. They just kind of feel like relatively basic but dependable transportation.
Yeah, so they need to really, the next Nissan Kicks need to be successful. They're just refreshing the Armada, right? So that's coming up. They're supposed to be slightly refreshing the Frontier. We've seen some prototypes of the next iteration of the Nissan Frontier.
Cool. They brought back the Z.
But it's not successful, dude.
Yeah, no one's buying
the Z. What do you think the issue with the Z is?
The problem with the Z is it's a two-door sports car, and people just aren't buying them. Like if you look at Supra or Z4 sales, same thing. It's a segment that everybody wants and all the enthusiasts want, but none of us have the funds, I think, to afford
50,
the new ones.
50 grand or 60 grand.
Yeah, or in this case, 42,970. Like they're really cool cars. They're just not selling because people aren't buying sports cars. And people are like, well, why are sedans dying? It's because all your friends who are not listening to this podcast, but who are just driving around normally, are all wanting SUVs, right?
Little crossovers, something taller, maybe all-wheel drive.
100%.
Yeah, more capable.
So that's why we're just not selling Supras and Zs, right? They're just not a segment people are really buying right now. But yeah, I mean, Nissan's kind of in a tough spot. I don't know if they have the development dollars to really put in all new generations of stuff. But to their credit, I think that their cars are generally, I'm pretty impressed. Like we just leased that Nissan Leaf.
Yeah.
Right?
For 2 years.
2 years.
We have a Nissan Leaf for 2 years. And when you and Roman first talked about it, and I was in shock because, out of pocket, it was what? It was about $2,400, right?
For the whole
lease
period, yes.
But it's $9 a month?
Yeah, $9.
How's that possible?
So I don't really fully understand how Nissan makes money at this deal. So our local dealer makes money because there's like a $6.95 dealer fee, right?
Okay.
So they're not making any money at $9 a month, but they basically make their money up front and then they're happy with that, right? Easy deal, $700 in the pocket. Then there's like a $700 acquisition fee, which I'm not sure if that goes to the dealer or Nissan, but regardless, a little bit of money there. But then the buyout's like 18 grand in 2 years, which is a terrible deal. So I don't know how they're making money on this car at all from a Nissan standpoint.
It sounds like they just want to move the inventory they currently have. That's kind of why they're doing this deal. But dude, if you have home charging, if you're in the position to charge this Nissan Leaf at home, it's very convenient. It will go at least 150 miles on a charge, maybe more in certain conditions, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's a great runabout. It's got 4 doors and 5 seat belts, so you can put 5 people in there.
I did say once that the Nissan Leaf has set back the world of electric cars. 10 years.
Well, it doesn't have a liquid-cooled battery, right?
Because, exactly, Andre, the problem with the Leaf is it was the best-selling EV for a lot of years.
Yes.
And they didn't climate control the battery, which meant that people would overheat them charging them, and then they would fail. And then you saw the headlines, my $15,000 Leaf needs a $30,000 battery. And that was just stupid cost-cutting on Nissan's part when they developed the Leaf back in the 2010 model year. And they just never put the money to really update
Never
it.
recovered. I mean, now it's a second generation of the car.
Having said that,
basically,
if you can lease this vehicle for 10, 20, 30, 40, $100 a month all in, it is an excellent runabout. So comfortable, so easy to use. Apple CarPlay, the screen is high definition. The screen works. It's really quiet on the inside. It's really well packaged. Like, it's a small car, big trunk, seats fold flat. Like, it is not a bad car. I know it's going on 2017, 7 years old now, but it's just good, basic, reliable transportation. It's not sexy, doesn't look cool. No one's jealous of the Leaf, but it's just a great car to drive around in.
And we'll give you an update of our lease, right? We'll have it for at least 2 years, like we said.
Yeah.
And it's a great deal. And a lot of our, people here at TFL Studios will be using it, sometimes as a runabout, going to the airport or whatnot. So we'll be able to tell you what to do or how it does. And also, I think it's 10,000 miles a year, right?
Yeah, 20,000 mile total lease.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, I was thinking about just picking one up for my wife because she has a pretty long commute and she's just wasting gas and like we have a place to charge. And it doesn't make a ton of sense for her to sell her car.
Because she drives more miles?
Well, that is part of it. And B, her car is efficient enough and reliable enough where like there's not that huge of a benefit when you consider the down payment. Because like it's $1,300 down with the fees, but then you have to pay taxes on top of that. So if it was $1,300 all in plus $9 a month for sure, but in our area it's about $1,000 in taxes, right? So all of a sudden it's $2,300 down. So it's total ownership cost $2,500 over those 2 years, plus it's front wheel drive. So she's going to need to drive my car or something else in the winter.
Yeah, because there's some dirt roads involved and snow and ice.
Kind of rugged terrain. Yeah, you really do want all-wheel drive to get where we live. So That's the problem with it. But for someone that just lived,
In the city, yeah.
If you like Andre, you have a daughter turning like 16, right?
Yeah, she's going to be 17 soon.
Perfect car.
Yes.
Right?
She drives to high school and back. And
She can't go very far.
Nope.
So
she doesn't want to go very far.
cheap to insure, super cheap to run, really no maintenance over that 2-year lease period. So it just makes so much sense. Not a fast charging car, like if you wanted to DC charge it. And
So it's not a road tripper.
no, and it uses this outdated CHAdeMO
Yeah.
connector.
Yeah.
Although we do have a CCS to CHAdeMO adapter coming. A company called A to Z is sending us one.
Okay.
So we're really excited to try that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but if you just needed a car to drive around in, such a good deal. Leased. I wouldn't buy one per se because they depreciate quickly, but as a runabout, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, really good. So, Andre, some other stuff going on at the office, which I thought we should talk about. We have this Lucid in.
Yes. So I haven't driven it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to jump into it. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's the Lucid Air, and we're a little late to the game. We haven't had a chance to drive one. Now, what this is a full-sized electric sedan, but the headline number is, on a single charge, the GT trim we have can go up to 512 miles.
That's huge.
Dude,
that's the best, right?
That's a big number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had it charged up, and we drove, I think the total was somewhere around 180 miles from our offices to the top of Loveland Pass.
Okay.
So we went from 5,000 feet to like
12,000 feet.
12,000 feet, and then all the way back down. And the car still had 67% remaining when we got back.
So you used a third of a battery over 180 miles of driving?
Up a mountain.
Yes.
All the way up a mountain. And
you gained some energy on the way down.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we did for sure. Because we left the top of the mountain, I think, with 69, and we made it down like 80 miles with 67%.
Almost using zero energy.
Right. So,
Yes.
but up the mountain, we were really burning the electrons. But this is such an impressive car. Expensive. The one we drove was 125, but it does start at 69. But what I'm impressed with is, look, like this is a car that, in my opinion, is the best in class. I like it a lot more than the Mercedes EQS. The interior design is very, very futuristic. Fantastic fit and finish. It's the color and the textures and the quality of materials they use that make this car stand out, because it's got really interesting tan front seats with the black rear seats. It's got like this cool contrasting bronze piping, like stuff I would never choose, but thank God I didn't, because it looks amazing when you see it in person. And it's super quiet, 0 to 63 seconds. I mean, it's an amazing car, but the cool part is it was designed and manufactured right here in the US.
Yes, but there is one problem.
What's the problem?
It's a sedan.
Yes, that was a silly mistake.
So Lucid is a new company, right? And their first vehicle really out of the gate was a sedan. But it's due to the history of the company, right? So Peter Rawlinson, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly.
I think you got it.
Used to be at Tesla, and he wanted he's an engineer at heart, right? So he really wanted to build a superior vehicle to any other sedan out there. And I think he did.
I think he did.
I think he did. I think the Lucid Air is amazing. I just haven't driven it, but I listened to a lot of their presentation, their technology behind it, their packaging. And it's not cheap, I think, for a reason, because it's using a lot of these really, really high-tech solutions, batteries and cooling and motors and very compact design and very powerful and very efficient. But they need an SUV, which is coming.
Yes, but they should have launched with the SUV.
Yeah, they should have come out with the SUV, I think.
The problem is a lot of the folks that worked for that company were ex-Tesla. And I got the impression the initial plan for that company was to outdo Elon with the Model S, which they successfully did.
Yes.
I mean, there is no doubt that they out-Elon'd Elon. The problem is they should have wanted to sell the most cars humanly possible, and that just never ended up happening.
They could have done a pickup or an SUV.
Right.
And an SUV is coming either at the end of this year or maybe early next year.
And
right?
I think, that's what RJ did really well with Lucid, or with Rivian.
Rivian, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard interviews with them, and initially the team was planning on doing a sports car first, right? That was the dream, was to start with a sports car. But they realized that, especially selling an American car to Americans, you're much better off starting with a truck and an off-roader. And that strategy, I think, panned out really well for Rivian.
Yeah, and I was just looking at Lucid stock. So one other way I'm kind of looking at companies is looking at their stock price, right?
Sure.
I don't invest into any of these brands, but their stock price has been going down and down and down.
Yeah.
So, and I'm hoping by introducing the SUV, the Gravity, that it'll help them.
And look, I think they're also in a very premium space, a very expensive car. The car launched at $160,000, and they unfortunately do not hold their value very well. I mean, we were looking in the used market, and you can pick one of these up, a couple of years used, 10,000 miles for high 60, low 70s.
So it loses more than half of its value?
More than half of its value.
Yeah.
So the value proposition long term, I'm not sure is there, and it would be an excellent car to buy used. I haven't seen a lot of folks complaining about problems with them, but like it's such a miracle of like engineering. For example, the EQS Mercedes or the BMW i cars, you can't pop the front end because all there is are electronic components that they want you to service at the dealer. This car has a front trunk that expands the full width of the Lucid and a few feet into it and all the way down.
So you could like sit in it almost.
Yeah.
You could climb into it.
Plus the rear trunk, same thing, the full width of the vehicle. Like, I don't know where they put the electrical bits that make the car work. It's amazing.
So here's, when we're talking about 10 or 15 years ago about the promise of the electric vehicle, the whole promise was, well, first of all, efficiency and quietness, but also space on the inside, right? If you look at, for example, the Chevy Blazer EV or the Chevy Equinox EV, these electric crossovers don't have a frunk. Same thing, like the Mercedes you're talking about, Tommy. So I think more manufacturers, and obviously this is not inexpensive to do, but Lucid did a great job at that, right? Offering space for the passengers and the cargo in a whole package.
Right. No, I mean the thing is fantastic. It's just too expensive. It needs to be a truck. But apart from that, it's probably the best car I've driven all year. So another interesting point here, Andre. I'm on our Patreon.
Okay.
TFL.
Cool. Patreon.com/TFL Car.
You got it. Thank you, Andre. So we got a message here from a user named Gassy, and Gassy says, just watched your video. Hybrid cars are all the rage. These are the best and worst. Tommy mentioned that he was initially against PHEVs, plug-in hybrids, because they were the worst of both worlds, but has since come around and sees them that there is a good place for them. Then he points out there are still haters as you'd expect online, and he gives some examples. And then what bothers me as someone who drives a RAV4 Prime is that people hate all over a particular vehicle since it doesn't work for them, but then totally forgets that it might work for someone else. Regarding PHEVs, if you cannot plug in at home or you drive mainly highway miles, plug-in hybrids aren't for you. If you are in this camp, you truly get the worst of both worlds. If you drive mainly in the city, your commute is less than 40 miles and only take occasional road trips, PHEVs are great. Many people are just like me. So, interesting point there, Gassy. Thank you for sending us.
By the way, this is our long-term supporter, Gassy Peepers.
That's right,
and
Andre.
I believe his daughter gave him this name.
Oh,
which is
really?
very funny.
That's very funny.
Yeah, very funny.
No, I think he brings up a really interesting point. The problem with PHEVs, and I was against them for a long time.
And I'm also kind of against them.
You are also. Why are you against them, Andre?
For the same reason, I think, because it seems like, and I think I'm going to agree at the end with Gassy, but it seems like you are carrying two powertrains and the weight of two powertrains. You're carrying a gasoline engine, you're carrying a fuel tank for that engine, you're carrying an electric motor and a battery and a charger to charge that battery, all in one vehicle. And it seems like it's a waste. Why are you doing all this?
Yeah.
Right? But for a particular use case, for example, my wife commutes 50 miles a day. Maybe it's kind of similar to what maybe your wife commutes.
Sure, exactly.
And for that type of commute, a plug-in hybrid could make a lot of sense.
Right.
You're using mostly electricity. We have a charger in our garage at home. So my wife charges her car, which is an i3 range extender, actually, which also has two powertrains. Right? A small gasoline engine, which is a generator to help charge the battery. So yeah, I think there are use cases where that works.
So, and I think a lot of my dislike for PHEVs when I think about it comes from the fact that a lot of the early ones had a very limited EV range.
Like 20 miles, maybe,
Or like 7.
or less, or 7.
Like I remember we were testing the first plug-in hybrid Prius, and it did. I think we tested 7 miles on electric only.
By the way, we bought another PHEV.
Yes, yeah.
It's one with like fancy doors that open like a gullwing.
Yeah, BMW i8.
Yes.
Another car, one of my dad's dream cars that was $130,000 new, and then he bought it with 36,000 miles on it for $49,000.
Yes.
So a very heavily depreciated BMW and another PHEV. Great point, Andre.
Yes.
So that car is a little different. So that one only goes 15 miles on a charge.
Which is not quite enough. I think that's where your dislike is coming from.
Right.
Yes.
But what it uses the hybrid system for is more than that. It also makes the car all-wheel drive. Because the front axle is powered by electricity, and then the rear axle is powered by this teeny tiny gasoline 3-cylinder.
Yes.
But what's cool about it is it uses the electrification to make the car really quick in bursts, right? And then uses the gasoline engine to help you kind of be efficient on the highway.
And also recharge the battery at certain cases, right?
And recharge the battery.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And, you know, that's now, I think that car was really ahead of its time, launched in 2014. And just now we're seeing all the future of supercars being plug-in hybrids, or at least some sort of hybrid, right? Like the new Lamborghini Revuelto.
Yeah, and Ferrari's doing this. Many different high-end vehicles are doing this.
The problem with the i8, it was too expensive and not quick enough, I think, for what it was, right? Like what Lamborghini's doing is they're combining it with this monster engine where BMW combined it with this little baby 3-cylinder.
engine,
Yeah, so people weren't sure, like, is this a fuel economy play? Is it a performance play? And to be honest, it was a little bit of both. And the car ended up being a fantastic Grand Tourer, but it didn't get those headlines of, wow, this car looks like it'll do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds when it really does it in 4 seconds.
And here's the thing. I drove the i8 from Fort Collins back to Boulder here to our offices, and it gets looks.
A lot of looks.
Yeah, this is 10 years down the road. And I think it's because, first of all, not a lot of i8s were made. Also, you don't see them every day at all. I mean,
Right.
depending on where you live, you may never see one. So when people see this kind of a funky-looking, exotic, it looks exotic, vehicle, pretty fancy. People take pictures still, and it still looks good today, I think, as it did 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, it's a stunning car, and for $50,000. Like, I know there's that concern about reliability, but those cars genuinely seem very sorted, right? There are some instances of battery failure, which is bad news, and that's always the concern about buying a used plug-in hybrid, but they're very few and far between, and there are people that can fix them for not absorbent amounts of money. So they are, I think, a very good car to buy now, hold on to for 20 years, and I'm not going to bet my life on it, but I'm quite confident in thinking that car is going to appreciate in value.
That's really interesting. Yeah. We should set a calendar appointment for 20 years from now.
Yeah, I'll set a note on my phone.
Reminder.
A reminder. Now, Andre, going back to Gassie's comment one more time.
Yes.
I think the biggest problem with PHEVs now is not the range, because now that you can go 40 miles on a charge, they make a lot of sense. It's getting people to understand the darn things. Because if you are listening to this podcast, you probably have a good understanding on how a hybrid works.
Yeah. And like, for example, Jeep Wrangler hybrid.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
But a lot of folks still don't get it, like in the general public. I remember a couple of years ago, I went on this Toyota event, and they would survey like 100,000 or some huge number of their customers. And they would ask them basic questions like, does a Toyota Prius require gasoline? The definitive hybrid, right? Like that's the car that when you say hybrid,
the hybrid, really.
Yeah, you probably think hybrid. And they found that 50% of potential buyers thought that the Prius required no gasoline at all.
Oh.
And this was 20 years after its introduction. And that's a good demonstration of just how behind the average consumer is on understanding this technology. Which brings me to my next point, Andre, which is if someone can't understand a hybrid, they're not going to understand a plug-in hybrid, and then a range extender.
Oh my God.
Forget about it.
Yes. So what happens to a lot of plug-in hybrids is that the battery is actually never charged.
Sure.
That's what I've heard as well.
Yes.
Is that people just either forget about it, or maybe it's not convenient for them to charge wherever they live. So they just say, you know what, I have a fuel tank. I'm going to fill up my plug-in hybrid, and I'm going to forget about charging it.
And the problem with that is if you never plug it in, you're never getting the benefit of having that big battery.
Right. So you're lugging around 500 pounds or so of dead weight, basically.
Right. And at that point, you should have just not bought one to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next comment from Patreon here is from Tommy G.
Okay.
So I did a video.
But it's not you.
No, not me.
Okay.
No, I'm Tommy M. We did a video about the Toyota Mirai.
Yes.
And what Tommy says is we will all be driving H2 powered cars in the next 20 years or so. Mark my words. All the smart investors, engineers, and scientists are working overtime to build that infrastructure. Once it's economical, we'll be driving these as the BEV market crashes. Toyota putting their reputation on the line for H2 fueling is not a mistake. Tommy, you'll be doing videos in 20 years on how crazy we were to have BEVs with the H2 alternative right in front of our eyes. Just wait and see. Love TFL. What's your thought on that, Andre?
Okay, so Tommy G. Well, first of all, thank you for the question. Thank you for your support. Love it. I think still there's not going to be a uniform one single fuel solution.
Okay.
That's what I think. I went to Toyota's California Hydrogen Center. They were showing their semi-trucks, right? The hydrogen and fuel cell powered semi-trucks. They have at their port of Long Beach, Toyota has a facility which takes renewable natural gas that comes from food waste, basically, processing of food waste. They're using natural gas to create hydrogen. They use the hydrogen to power their port operations. And also, because they're powering their port operations, it also creates water, Tommy.
Yes.
And they use some of this water to wash cars, believe it or not. So, yes, Toyota is investing a lot into this. But even Mr. Toyoda, the chairman of the company, he himself said that it'll be a multi-fuel solution, right? There'll still be gasoline-powered vehicles 10 or 20 years from now. There'll still be diesel vehicles 10 or 20 years from now. Hybrids, hydrogen vehicles. So I don't think hydrogen will take over everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Andre, you bring up a lot of really good points. The challenge with hydrogen, as always, as Tommy G. had pointed out, is the infrastructure. And he says that all the smart investors, engineers, and scientists are working overtime to build that infrastructure.
Sure.
And I haven't seen any tangible, actual results from that claim.
So you haven't been driving on an interstate, and you haven't seen a truck stop or a fuel stop where you pull off and you see a hydrogen pump right there.
Right.
Bam.
I remember 4 years ago, or maybe it was 6 years ago now, I went to that same Toyota trip I was telling you about. It's called Evolution, and they talked about how they were pushing really hard to get laws changed in states to allow them to build that infrastructure. And they had these graphs showing the projected increase of hydrogen stations over time. And they said, this was like 2018, they're like, this year we have 50 of them. Next year is going to be 60, and then 100 and 200.
Yeah.
Problem is, 6 years, 4 or 6 years later, it's going the other way. Right.
Yeah.
And recently in California, they had 55 stations, and Shell now has pulled out of the hydrogen game. So now they're down to 48. And from talking to folks online, roughly half those stations are completely kaput anyways, and they're just not being fixed.
But that's not to say that Tommy G is wrong.
No.
I think within 20 years from now, which is a long time, technology is improving exponentially, right?
Sure.
And so there's, Toyota was talking about different nozzles. So trucks could use a larger nozzle for higher hydrogen flow. Cars could use smaller nozzles for lower flow. It's also quick to refuel.
Awesome.
If it takes an hour to recharge an electric car, it could take 5 minutes to refuel an hydrogen car.
Awesome. Yeah.
So there's many benefits to hydrogen, but still a huge hurdle is hydrogen takes energy to produce.
Right.
It's not free. Hydrogen just doesn't exist, by itself in nature.
Well, it is the most abundant element in the universe.
But it combines with everything.
Yeah. You kind of got to take it and then
from something else.
Pull it out of whatever
Water,
it's attached to.
yeah.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of energy. And the argument has always been, if you are spending energy to remove hydrogen from, the electrolysis process, why not just take that energy and put it into a car and drive it down the road? Right. That's always been the rub with hydrogen. Now, I think for what I'm finding is for driving around in a passenger car, electric makes more sense, because instead of having an onboard generator, just have a battery. Because the hydrogen, what it does is it's got a fuel stack that turns hydrogen into electricity, more or less. And then that electricity goes into a battery anyways before it goes to an electric motor. Why not just cut out the middleman and go right to the battery?
Exactly.
For truck applications, long distance towing, where recharge, refuel time is a must, now we're talking about real potential.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of manufacturers are now talking about semi-trucks running on hydrogen.
Sure.
Nikola is dedicated to that almost entirely. I mean, they do have battery-powered semis, but also hydrogen fuel cell powered. Hyundai is in the game. Honda is in the game. Toyota is in this game. Gosh, I don't know if GM or Ford. GM has a lot of fuel cell technology as well, but many manufacturers are investing into hydrogen fuel cell tech.
Yeah,
for big rigs.
I mean, I think Hyundai's pulling out of the game a little bit, at least in the passenger car.
Okay, but they still have their Xeon semi-truck.
That's true.
Yeah, they
That's
do have a semi-truck.
Yeah, good point. But I think they're discontinuing the Nexo. So yeah, Tommy, I'm not saying you're incorrect. I'm not entirely sold yet. What it would take would be Hyundai, Ford, BMW, whoever, to team up and say, here's a pot of $4 billion. We are going to build out the
network.
Well,
government is investing. U.S. government is putting in $7 billion into hydrogen.
Which is awesome. Yeah, I mean, even our state just, we're doing a story next week. We got an $8.9 million investment from the state of Colorado for 3 hydrogen stations along the Front Range. So that's good news. And yeah, the technology is here. It's just going to take someone like Tesla did with the supercharger network to actually build it.
Yes.
Which is the what it comes down to.
And then manufacturers like Ford, Ram, we talk about Ram a lot, GM, can build heavy-duty pickup trucks on hydrogen too. If there is an infrastructure, if you build it, they will come, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about hydrogen is there's a couple of different ways you can use it to power a vehicle. So what Andre and I are talking about is running it through a fuel stack, combining it with oxygen to create a zap of electricity to feed a battery and power a motor.
Yep.
You can also use it to just power a gasoline engine,
You could
essentially.
burn it.
Yeah.
You could burn hydrogen.
Which has been talked about, right, as a sustainable fuel. Problem with burning hydrogen is you're still burning an element, right? And you're still creating pollution.
Yes, but you're creating good noises.
And a great experience. Yeah.
People like good noises.
So I think
V8 noises.
That's a great future in keeping enthusiast cars alive. I'm excited for that.
Sure.
I'm not sure it's like a sustainable way to move forward with transportation. But and then lastly, I mean, I've also heard stories. My dad was just telling me recently that they're finding hydrogen useful in things like drones, because you can kind of pack in a lighter package, more range than you could with like a big old battery, which is pretty interesting.
And I think if I'm reading between the lines, after my Toyota trip to their hydrogen facility, big vehicles like trains, boats could use this technology also.
Great point.
Because a boat, could have a huge hydrogen storage facility, or it could create hydrogen while moving too, right? Because it has access to water, it has access to, many other different systems. So it could power big things like container ships or big trains.
There are some other funny kind of holdups with hydrogen. One of which is a lot of folks are still worried about a Hindenburg situation.
Yes. And some states prevent you from transporting hydrogen over bridges or tunnels, right?
That's right. Yeah, that was Toyota's big challenge for a long time, is like on the East Coast, we're going to be live in New Jersey, but you can't drive through a tunnel or over a bridge.
Ooh.
Which is a problem.
Yeah.
So the tanks are very, very, very much tested. They fire ballistics at them and do every possible stress test. They do have an expiration date. It's worth noting, like I think a Mirai, you can't fill up beyond 2038 without replacing the tanks, because you're physically expanding and contracting, and there's like, hey, at some point we're going to have fatigue.
There's a life to that, yes.
But yeah, the technology's cool, and I think it's got a future in big things, but maybe not the little cars we drive every day.
Yeah, and also in a smaller vehicle like the Mirai, you're taking away a lot of the interior space with those tanks.
They are pretty bulky.
Yeah.
The tanks are pretty
Yeah.
bulky. Yeah, that's a good point.
Anyways, so thank you for your question or comment.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
And if you folks have more, check us out, patreon.com/TFL Car.
Exactly.
Well, sweet, Andre. I think that was a fun little podcast in the bag.
So we did buy or lease a couple of new vehicles.
Yep.
We bought and leased. What's going on classics? Can you give a small preview?
Yeah. So up tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the podcast platforms, we have a video where Case and I took our Willys World War II Jeep to the Jeep dealer for service.
Whoa.
So that's really cool.
Okay.
We've got the next part of my dad's road trip down from Alaska in the BMW i8. We have an interesting towing video live on TFL Truck with the Cybertruck and an F-150
Yep.
torture test.
Yep.
That's one you're definitely going to watch because that's going to ring some alarm bells for a lot of folks.
That's gas-powered, bestseller versus electric.
Speaking of electrification, I also took the Cybertruck and towed the first really good electric Polaris to a trail. Try that off-road.
Are you talking about the Ranger Kinetic?
the Ranger Kinetic?
Uh-huh.
One of the coolest machines I've driven in a long time.
I didn't think you would say that.
Absolutely
Because
phenomenal.
I thought you'd be more skeptical of this.
I was, and then I drove it once. It is so freaking fast. It is so fast, people are going to kill themselves on it. It is too fast for the platform. It's like 140 pound-feet of torque at every single possible throttle position. It's just trying to kill you. It is amazing. And the battery life was really good. I mean, it was the best side-by-side I have ever driven. I mean, look, I love gasoline when it's being powered by a V8 in a Corvette. What a noise.
Yes.
When it is powering a 2-cylinder weed whacker
Yeah, which is always loud and stinky.
and a CVT,
Yeah.
not as into them.
Yeah.
And the CV side-by-side was incredible. Plus, like, Alex got it sunk in this pit, realized what was happening. Instant torque, 25-foot rooster tail out the mud pit. Never seen anything like it. Problem with it,
I want to watch that video.
it's a Ranger, so it's kind of like the work play version.
Yeah, because it has a bed.
$37,000.
Oh, that's a downside.
Yeah, pretty big problem. So yeah, I mean at $23,000, absolutely. For the price of a Tesla Model 3, they are out of their minds.
Okay, so it's still a luxury item, I would say.
Very much so.
Okay.
But a very impressive item at that. So yeah, that's over at TFL Off-Road. You can see our full impressions there.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks for joining us once again. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Guys, have a great weekend. And yeah, we'll see you on another episode of the TFL Car Chat.